Sega. They make Sonic. And if you asked dumb little Mike what he thought they also did, you'd hear, oh, I think they did Samba de Amigo on the Wii. Look, I apologise for how ignorant I was. When the Sega Dreamcast died, I was only 2 years old, so as far as I was aware, they didn't even make consoles. But I'm doing my best to make up for lost time by educating myself on the games I was too young or too stupid to play. I could start with the Master System, but I don't want to. So on the Sega Genesis, there have got to be some top tier titles that I should play. I looked up the best Sega franchises that weren't Sonic, and there was one clear winner. Spoilers, it's not Wayne's World. Other than platformers, Sega were best known for bringing the arcade experience to the homes. This isn't an arcade port, but it definitely carries the same DNA as those iconic games, more specifically, the beat-em-ups. Now, I've tried a bit of Final Fight and Turtles in Time, but it always ended up in button mashing, game overs, frustration. This time, however, I am dedicated to seeing a beat-em-up through to the end, and hopefully finding out what's so special about them. Welcome to the show, where I look at games I didn't grow up with to determine if they still hold up today. Welcome to Nostalgia. Streets of Rage has what most of its contemporaries don't, a sense of style. Any game can have you walking through streets, punching thugs, it's kind of a genre's MO, but few quite like this. Streets of Rage uses late 80s to early 90s American cities as inspiration, taking the player through neon city streets, rundown towns, moonlit beaches. I mean, don't get me wrong, the graphics definitely aren't anything too special, even for its time, but there was clearly an effort to give this game its own identity. Level environments don't really change between the start and the end of a stage, but the 8 you encounter only take around 7 or 8 minutes to beat, so it's not too bad. As interesting as the locations are visually, they do get less so towards the end. I mean, what game doesn't have a factory level? If I had to pick a favourite out of all of them, it would definitely be this one. Now, if you didn't know, you can throw enemies. I think you can see where this one's gonna go. Now, when I booted up Streets of Rage, I'll tell you that my first playthrough was abysmal. I barely knew what I was doing. I found myself dying over and over again to big fatty fat, oh, I hate them so much. And even getting past that, I kept getting stuck at these green women that just won't sit still, just stop, please. And then I'd get a game over, then I'd have to start the whole game all over again. Trying a different character, surprisingly, did make a difference though. All vary on speed, jump, and power, excelling in two, but not the other. For example, Axel has a gimp jump, Blaze is the weakest, and Adam is the slowest. Now this sounds great, in theory, as each one has its own strengths and weaknesses. However, in my experience, the other two pale in comparison to Blaze, as speed is arguably the most important stat, and I found jumping fairly useful for crowd control, which are both essential for positioning and stunning enemies. My struggles with this game became less overbearing upon learning some fundamentals. It may seem obvious to some, but positioning became essential. Going left or right really didn't cut it. Closing the gap by going under an enemy was often the safer option. There is also no way to attack from both sides at once, so herding all the enemies so that they're all in front of me was the best way to stop being overwhelmed. A more obtuse thing that I learned was the importance of stuns. Hitting an enemy will cause them to freeze briefly. I could just spam the attack button, but that might open me up to getting hit. So if I pace my punches, rhythmically tapping the button so that they're constantly stunned, well, I'm a lot safer. What became even more useful than throwing punches were the grabs. These trivialise certain bosses, unless you're Adam. He's pretty slow, so grabbing enemies half the time, well, you might as well call me Adam backwards because these boss fights made me mad. There are various weapons you can find in the stages, whether that's pipes or broken bottles. All of these are extremely useful and you'll drop them when you get hit. If you don't get hit, you actually are able to carry them to the end of the stage. The only unfortunate thing is picking up a weapon is the exact same button you use to punch, so there were a lot of times where I accidentally picked up a weapon when I was trying to hit enemies. Other than that, another way in which you can defend yourself is by using special attacks. This is basically just a screen wipe that you get one of per life. Is it useful? Yes. Did I spam them to get through some of the horrible boss fights? Oh, absolutely. The many enemies you'll encounter vary a fair bit. You've got the standard foes that are way too fast on their approach, causing me to have to inch forward just to get by. You've got punks that'll throw you if you're not careful. You've got these guys that jump around a bunch, axe and fire throwing jugglers, and not sure how I feel about these ones. 5 enemy types you'll see all of by the second stage. Sure, there are different colorations that do more damage, but that's it. The only way they change it up is by adding mini bosses, which are just regular bosses that have been plonked in the middle of the stages. I think despite how short this game is, it does get a little bit repetitive. Hopefully the sequel will have some more variety. One of the most standout elements of Streets of Rage is the soundtrack. It took me back at first. I expected to hear something hard-hitting, something rock-centric, but the more I listened to it, I thought, nah, this soundtrack is actually pretty killer. Here are a few standouts. '80s and '90s pop music isn't what I expected at all, but it makes excellent use of the Mega Drive sound chip that suited this type of music. Now, Streets of Rage is certainly enjoyable, if a bit basic, but the series didn't end there, so let's see if the quality of the next entry can be taken to the max. Max, a wrestler, and Skate, Adam's younger brother, are the 2 newcomers to the series, accompanying Blaze and Axel. You see, Adam's been captured by Mr. X, who is once again wreaking havoc on the city. Of course, it's up to our 4 heroes to take him down, and it's a good job that this time they're a lot more capable. The same core gameplay returns from before, but with a few new additions. Each player can perform a blitz attack that you use to deal a devastating blow to your enemies. These can absolutely trivialise certain fights, as you can use them as much as you want. There is also a side special and a neutral special attack that replace the car, also unique to each character. These don't have a limited use, but they do drain your health when used, so they're great in a tight spot, but not really something that you should rely on. Streets 1, like most beat 'em ups I've played, had nearly identical characters. With Streets 2, I can openly talk about not liking Max because he's a slow moving brick, yet I've spoken to people who think he's the best character in the game. Blaze is still my pick as I love her blitz attack, but the great thing about Streets 2 is that there's no inferior choice, it's merely up to your preference. Blaze and Axel both seem pretty balanced fighters, but Skate is super fast, yet extremely weak. Not a Skate fan myself, but I'm sure someone is. Now, if you hadn't noticed, the jump in graphical fidelity is huge. All of the colours just pop, the sprites and environments are way more detailed, with the stage design being more vibrant, offering fresh, diverse locales that continue to enhance the 90s city setting. Streets 1 Stage 1 had the same background that just looped, while in contrast, Streets 2 has you go past shops, to go down a screen, to then fight a mini-boss who isn't a main boss that's just been copied over, but a unique enemy, And then you end up in a bar, which leads you to being in this alleyway where you fight the boss. The stage isn't that much longer than that's in Streets 1, but it's far more dynamic, shifting between different locations to keep it interesting. My favourite example is Stage 3. You start off in an amusement park, then you're inside punching arcade machines, then you go to this bit that leads to a pirate ship, then you're back outside again, which then takes you to your main attraction that looks like something out of Alien. It's absolutely crazy. This is such a titanic leap from the first game. It's insane how much better it is. I do think like the later stages aren't as interesting. I mean, you're still in a factory that then leads to an elevator, and then you end up fighting Mr. X, but it is still a vast improvement. Now, I'd be at a disservice if I didn't mention the music. Here are a few of my favourites. What can I say? It's even better, and it doubles down on what made the first unique, with more tracks in general to boot. The folly of thugs you'll beat up has doubled, all the same type's prior return minus the juggler, and the new inclusions help keep things fresh. Bikers ride across the screen, ninjas jump around everywhere. A lot more thought was clearly put into the types of encounters that you'll come across. The greatest challenge that Streets 2 offers comes from its boss fights. Mr. X's right-hand man Shiva is especially cunty. To be honest, I don't even know how I beat some of these. They're either cheesable with the same attack, or I just kind of bang my head against a wall until I win. Are the boss fights bad, or am I just terrible at beat 'em ups? I think it's just a badly made game. Streets 2 took what made the first good and improved on, well, everything. Streets 1 now kinda feels like a clunky prototype of what came after. It's still fun, but I mean, there's just no real reason to go back to it now. Streets 2 seems to keep the stages and its enemies fresh, and appears to dip out before it loses any possible steam. It's a title that completely eclipses the original, with such a leap in quality. It's hard to say if it can even be topped. Streets of Rage 2 is considered one of the best beat 'em ups ever made. And so is Streets of Rage 4. Now, not to brag, but I know my maths, and something's odd. It's Streets of Rage 3. Now there's a right way to play, and there's the way that you probably played it. And you know what? In that context, I completely get the lukewarm feelings you no doubt have towards the third Angry Pavement game. Do you ever order something online that looks pristine, but then the delivery driver hates his life, so he takes his divorce out on your parcel, ending with some damaged goods that you'll try and get replaced, but there's no stock available? Well, Streets of Rage 3 is the parcel, and the localization team is a depressed driver. Yes, this runs deeper than Blaze just wearing a different coloured outfit. The Japanese release has a lot of differences between its worldwide versions. I'll hold my rant about the sprite changes because, to be honest, I wasn't going to rub and tug over some pixels anyway, but what I do take issue with is the difficulty changes. Enemies are numerous and do more damage, along with bigger health pools, and you are also considerably weaker. Now, just to see how bad it is, I thought I'd do an experiment. I'm going to play the North American version as Skate, and keep playing until I get a game over. Then I'm going to jump over to the Japanese release and play the same amount of game and see how many lives I've lost. So, in order for you to get a game over, you have to lose a total of 9 lives. And in Streets of Rage 3, in the North American version, I ran out of my lives at the second stage boss. Now in Bare Knuckle 3, what this series is called in Japan, I beat the second level stage boss, and you know how many lives I lost in the Japanese version? 0. Not a single life. This level of dickheadery is unrivaled. making a game that felt challenging enough, just not fun at all. They even did a bunch of censoring. The sprites I mentioned, but did you know that the story is completely different in both versions? One with a seedy plot to use experimental weapons to blow up the city, and another that replaces the government with robots. The story doesn't really matter in this type of game, but I know which I prefer. The last noteworthy alteration was the removal of one of the playable characters. Streets 3 offers 4 playable characters from the get-go, with 3 that you can unlock. The Stage 1 mini-boss, Ash, was the one to get cut. Whether he was removed because he was offensive to gay people, or offensive because he was gay in general, it was the 90s, I don't know, but any censorship is frustrating. But he was shit to players anyway, so I kinda care, kinda don't. So let's get into the game itself. Just assume that anything I mention from this point is in both versions. So let's see how this differs from Streets of Rage 2. As mentioned, there are 4 playable characters from the get-go. Axel, Blaze and Skate return, controlling quite differently from their Streets 2 counterparts. Your punches, grabs and jumps are identical, but there are a few additions to deepen the combat. In Streets 2, Skate had the ability to run. Now it seems everyone else can do the same. This does wonders to the pacing and the flow of combat. The enemies do seem more aggressive, so being able to run out the way also helps. Aiding in said aggression is the ability to roll. With the increase in projectiles to deal with, this becomes a vital mechanic that I'm fond of. Again, it does wonders for the pacing. The blitz attacks and special moves have been overhauled. There is a bar with a cooldown, but when filled, lets you use your special attacks without reducing your health. This addition meant I actually used my special attacks this time, and if the bar is not filled, you can still trade your health for your attack, so I think this is a good compromise. The blitz attack has also been altered. If you hit certain point thresholds, you'll gain a star. This actually upgrades your blitz, improving its versatility. You will lose a star if you lose a life, so I wouldn't be shocked if people didn't even know that this was a mechanic that exists. And to be honest, I'd rather it be gated by progression rather than points, as I think it's a mini incentive to keep playing, as well as a way to help struggling players. The 4th addition to the core roster isn't max this time, because cyborgs are fine, but I guess a ripped wrestler being able to run, whoa, calm down, that's just too unrealistic. We now have cyborg scientist Dr. Zan. What separates him from the rest of the team is how he handles weapons. There have been added animations for the weapons, unique to each character. I personally enjoy the brutality of Axel's sword slicing and pipe swinging, but Zan, upon picking up a weapon, turns him into a ball of energy that he uses like a bowling ball. The 3 extra characters are a lot more pared down, no upgraded blitz attack, so I don't like them as much, but you can play as a boxing kangaroo, so I can't really complain, can I? What I will complain about though is the level design. I think their heart was in the right place. Falling barrels to avoid, vehicles to run from, whatever this boss is, there was clearly an effort to make the stages more interesting. It's just a vibe, man. The parallax scrolling is absent, a technique used to move the foreground and the background at different speeds to simulate depth. This leaves the locales looking flat compared to Streets of Rage 2, and even the locations themselves seem less visually interesting. Warehouses, construction sites, even a high-tech lab, I've just seen it before. There is one stage that's quite interesting from a mechanical level. You have to search for and destroy these consoles to free this military guy or police chief, depending on which version you're playing. The cool thing is though, you can actually fail. If he survives, you get taken to a high-tech lab where you have to defeat Mr. X finally. If you fail, he dies, and you end up going to the White House where you have to fight against Shiva, where you get the bad ending. This is pretty cool actually. It does encourage me to replay the game again. Streets of Rage 3 does have a ton of good ideas. Out of all 3 of the games, it even has the best combat. It just doesn't have that Streets of Rage style that I found in the first 2. And I think a huge part of that style derives from the music. Now if you've been paying attention to this video at all, or at least with your ears, you'll notice I haven't been playing any Streets of Rage 3 music. I've been playing music from Sonic 3 and also Knuckles. It would feel like an insult to those who had ears. I could have played Streets of Rage 3's music. Of course, an example. Let me compare the character select music. I actually despise this soundtrack. At its best, it's forgettable. At its worst, it's just hard on the ears and not fun to listen to. It's weird to think that it's from the same composer of the other two games. I could complain that the bosses are a bit of a slog, they seem to go on for too long, or I could praise other things, but to be honest, I haven't really got much else to say, so let's not waste any more of your time. It's safe to say that I'm officially a fan of beat-em-ups. I had a really fun time, and I'll certainly be trying more beat-em-ups out in the future. As for Streets of Rage, it's a blast to play, and if I had to rank them, I'd say that 1 is the worst due to being the most primitive, then 3, then 2. So, Streets of Rage 2, my favourite game in the series. Well no, but that's a video for another time.